Hey everyone, the Game Piece here. Welcome back to Temtem Up. Today we have another match, so let's get right into it, everyone. We got a match against Ultil, and looking at his team here, it seems like this is going to be the fairly standard meta team that you're going to be running into for the majority of your time on the ranked ladder, depending on who you run into though, of course, but generally this is going to look like the standard meta team for the moment anyway. Skunch, of course, being a very popular pick, along with Volorend, Kinu, and Volfi, and of course Yala still seeing a lot of play as well still. So anyway, getting into the pick and ban phase here, he goes ahead and bans my Kinu, not wanting to get any protector buffs, and I actually wanted to ban his Volfi here, but accidentally hit the up button on my controller and ban Gialis instead, so you can see me kind of flailing a little bit there. But actually it ends up working out a little bit in the long run, as you'll see. So going into my first picks here, I was taking a look at his team, trying to kind of determine what I wanted to bring along. Looking at his team though, it looks like I really wanted to bring along Volfi here. He does have things that are more so weak to nature type, and he has the Mastione there, of course, as well for things like Dust Vortex. So I do end up going ahead and picking the Volfi there to try to counter his leads, and I'm really trying to determine what he wants to go for. He's kind of in a tough scenario depending on what I can pick second here. So he goes ahead and ultimately decides to go for the Skunch and the Nagaise as well here, as you will see. And I thought that that was a very interesting play, but I really knew at that point that I really wanted to bring along my Nagaise, and then I do also get a second ban here very shortly after this, allowing me to take care of the Volfi threat. And then if you'll see on his team, really the only thing that is going to be threatening my Nagaise when I bring it along is going to be his Volorend, and I do have other things on my team to be able to deal with that, things like Tuvine, Gialis, and even my own opposing Volorend is capable of dealing with that Volorend there. So here you go, you see the Naga and the Skunch get locked into play, and I really, like I said, am going to not have a huge problem dealing with this if I'm able to bring my own Naga. Skunch has that 4x weakness to mental types, so that makes it really extremely weak to things like Naga. So as you'll see here, you can take a look at my second ban, and I'm going to go ahead and think about it for a minute, but ultimately I think that Volfi is the way to go here. I was kind of considering maybe Seismunch, just for the fact that I do have some Tems that are weak to melee on my team, like Jakash, Gialis, and Tuvine, and Volfi, so that was my line of thinking, but ultimately I thought that Volfi was going to be the bigger threat. Plague, trapping things in and exhausting them is never a good thing, and I do have Tems on my team that are weak to that as well. So he goes ahead and bans my Ukama, not wanting to take any sort of direct water damage into his Mastione or his Seismunch. That does make sense. I go ahead and pick my Drakash and the Volorend for the next picks. Well, he goes ahead and picks his Volorend, and then ultimately tries to decide between Seismunch and Kinu. I do have Volorend to kind of deal with the Kinu here, so he does actually go for the Seismunch, surprisingly, and allowing me to go for my final pick, and I ultimately do decide to go for Tuvine. Taking a look at his threats there, it seems like Tuvine is ultimately the better option with dealing with what he has on the side of the field. So let's get right into it, our next match of the Kisiwa update here for the channel. Hopefully you guys are excited. We're gonna have a lot more of these videos in the future. So let's get right into the match. They are going to go ahead and lead with the Skunch and Naga. We're gonna lead with our Naga and Volfi. I didn't know if they were going to keep their Skunch for sure, because they were gonna lose it if they took a beta burst. So they go ahead and swap out Skunch, and they actually do a double swap. See the Deceit Aura proccing, but it doesn't matter because they actually swap out both their Tems, allowing me to go for some direct damage. Go ahead and go into the beta burst on the Mastione slot on the off chance that he did keep the Skunch in. Does a pretty respectable amount of damage, about 45%, and go for the Plague into the Volorend. Again, doing a pretty big chunk of damage from what I expected initially. Going to go ahead and trap that Volorend on the field thanks to the handcuff item. So the next turn, not wanting to take a Noxious Bomb, I go ahead and swap out into the Tuvine, and he actually goes for a Tornado, which is something I did not expect, but it actually does a pretty decent chunk of damage. About, wow, actually, like, I didn't expect that, like 70 damage. And go into the Dust Vortex on the Mastione slot to try to pick up the KO, and we do end up getting it, and that is very good for us, allowing him to bring in his next Tem, which will be the Seismunch. Volfi, of course, having access to Plague allows me to go for that the next turn and pick up the Exhaust and the Trap condition on the Seismunch as well. His Volorend is still, of course, trapped on the field, who goes for a Blizzard into the Volfi slot. who does a little under half HP. That aerobic Volorant is going to keep picking up its speed buffs, along with its hand fan going to do some pretty significant damage. Side Punch going for the uppercut into the 2-vine slot, which was surprising to me. I thought that they were for sure going to double into Wolfie there, as it was the bigger threat, in my opinion, to his team. So he went ahead and doubled into the Side Punch with a Feather Gatling for the KO. He goes ahead and brings in the Skunch, not wanting to take any sort of damage and lose my Wolfie. I do go ahead and swap out into Nagaise here. He goes ahead and goes for a Feather Gatling into the Nagaise slot, which would have targeted Wolfie. Probably was trying to pick up the KO with the Feather Gatling, and the perfect jab combo, as you'll see here, goes right into the Nagaise slot as well. We do go for the Crystal Plume Gatling, allowing us to chunk out a pretty large chunk of damage from Volorant's HP. Volorant, it really can't do anything there. It has very low stamina, so there's really no option but to swap out into Naga here, allowing me to go for a Beta Burst, which is going to completely throttle this Skunch. Of course, with that 4 times mental weakness, not going to take mental attacks very well at all. You go for the Feather Gatling. Looking back on it now, though, I probably should have went for the Crystal Plume Gatling right there, just knowing that he was probably going to swap out to his Naga, but live and learn. That's why we do these things, reflection here. So anyway, he brings back in the Volorant, and we are going to go ahead and be able to finish this off fairly quickly here. It was kind of interesting to run into an opposing Naga here. We kind of had a Nagaise mirror match, whereas my Naga had Water Custodian versus his having Deceit Aura on it. Mine actually did have Deceit Aura on it, but unfortunately when they did switch around the starter traits, it swapped. So anyway, going into the next turn here, allowing me to finish it off, Crystal Plume Gatling going first thanks to the Deceit Aura on his side of the field. And then you'll see, because his Volorant is super fast because of the aerobic buffs, he actually ends up going last. So able to finish that off with a energy manipulation victory there. Good game to my opponent, Ultil. I've really had a lot of fun playing with this team, and it's seemingly capable of dealing with a lot of the popular threats in the current meta at the moment, but I really do plan to also kind of make more of a fun team, or a few different fun teams to kind of showcase some of the newer Tems or some more interesting teams or some interesting matches, so definitely look forward to those in the future. You'll have plenty more Temtem content to come. Please feel free to leave a like if you did enjoy this video though, and please feel free to subscribe, like I said, for more Temtem content in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day.